A ceramic plate exploded against the marble floor, and the entire restaurant froze. "You're nothing but furniture," the manager snarled as a young waitress dropped to her knees, scrambling to clean the mess. At that exact moment, a phone from Tokyo began ringing, urgent, relentless, and no one dared to answer it. What they didn't know was that the girl they were humiliating understood every word about to be spoken on that line. In the next few minutes, a $20 billion deal would hang by a thread. A billionaire's empire would teeter on collapse, and the people who mocked her would unknowingly place their fate in her hands. She looked invisible, but she was the most dangerous person in the room. The sound of a ceramic plate shattering against the marble floor echoed like a gunshot through the dining hall of L'Obsidian Manhattan's most exclusive French restaurant. "You clumsy, worthless little rat." The voice belonged to Marcus Sterling, the restaurant's floor manager, a man whose suits were too tight and whose temper was too short. He loomed over Sophia Vance, his face turning a mottled shade of violet. Sophia dropped to her knees, her trembling hands reaching for the shards of the expensive Limoges china. "I'm sorry, Marcus. Mr. Sterling." My hand slipped. "I haven't slept in. I don't care if you haven't slept in a decade," Marcus hissed, kicking a piece of porcelain away from his polished shoe. "Tonight is the Thorne Yamamoto dinner. Do you have any idea the net worth sitting in the private alcohols at a bus station?" Sophia swallowed the lump in her throat. She needed this job. She needed it desperately. Her younger brother Toby was sitting in a hospital bed at Mount Si, waiting for a specialist to approve a surgery that insurance was refusing to cover. Every dollar from her double shifts went into the Toby Fund. "I understand, sir. It won't happen again," she whispered, sweeping the shards into her apron. "It better not." Marcus sneered. "You are not to speak. You are not to look Mr. Thorne in the eye. You pour the water, you clear the plates, and you disappear. You are furniture, Sophia. Do you understand furniture?" Sophia nodded, rushing back to the kitchen to dump the debris. As she passed the swinging doors, she caught her reflection in the stainless steel prep table. Dark circles under her eyes, messy brown hair tied back in a severe bun, a uniform that hung loosely on her frame. She wasn't always furniture. 3 years ago, she was a linguistics prodigy at Columbia University, on a full scholarship, fluent in 4 languages, specializing in East Asian business dialects. But when her parents died in that pile-up on I-95, the scholarship money didn't cover the funeral costs or Toby's care. She dropped out. She vanished. And now she was just a waitress at L'Obsidian. Table 1 is seating. The head chef barked. "Vance, get the water service now." Sophia smoothed her apron, took a deep breath, and walked out onto the floor. The atmosphere at table 1 was thick enough to choke on. Julian Thorne sat at the head of the table. He was younger than the tabloids made him look, maybe 32, with razor-sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of a stormy sea. He radiated a cold, terrifying power. Next to him sat his vice president and fiancée, Vanessa Cole. She was beautiful blonde and looked at the staff with open disdain. Across from them sat the Yamamoto delegation. Kaito Yamamoto, the CEO of Yamamoto Heavy Industries, looked unimpressed. He was an older man, traditional with a face made of stone. But there was a problem. An empty chair. "Where is the interpreter?" Julian asked, his voice low, but cutting through the ambient jazz music like a knife. Vanessa checked her phone, looking flustered. "I don't know, Julian. The agency sent Simon. He should be here. He's not answering. We have a $20 billion semiconductor deal on the table," Vanessa Julian said, his jaw tightening. "Mr. Yamamoto does not speak English, and my Japanese is limited to ordering sushi. Fix this." Sophia approached the table, silently pouring sparkling water into Mr. Yamamoto's glass. She moved with the grace of a ghost. Yamamoto turned to his assistant and muttered something in rapid-fire Japanese insult. "Keru, is he not here?" "This is an insult. Let's leave." Sophia's hand froze for a fraction of a second. She understood every word. He wanted to leave. He felt disrespected. "Get the agency on the phone." Julian snapped at Vanessa, not noticing the waitress. "I'm trying," Vanessa hissed. Sophia finished pouring and stepped back into the shadows against the wall, adhering to Marcus's rule. Be furniture. But the tension was escalating. Yamamoto stood up, buttoning his jacket. He spoke again, louder this time. "No mudada. Thornson wareadu. This is a waste of time, mister. The thorn is looking down on us." Julian looked panicked. He stood up, reaching out a hand. "Mr. Yamamoto, please, just one moment." Yamamoto didn't understand. He bowed curtly a dismissal and turned to leave. That was when the phone rang. Not a cell phone. The restaurant's landline located at the Maitre station near the VIP alcove. The Maitre was missing, likely in the kitchen. Getting yelled at by Marcus, the phone rang again, loud, insistent. Yamamoto paused. His own cell phone buzzed at the same time. He looked at it, saw the number, and his face went pale. He fumbled to answer, but his hands were shaking so bad he dropped the phone. It slid under the table. The restaurant landline kept ringing. "Someone answer that damn phone!" Julian shouted. Marcus came running out of the kitchen, spotting Sophia, standing near the Maitre station. "Vance, don't you touch that! Get back to the kitchen." But Sophia saw something the others didn't. She saw the caller ID on the restaurant landline. It was an international code, +81 Japan, and she saw the terror in Mr. Yamamoto's eyes as he scrabbled on the floor for his device. Instinct took over, the same instinct that made her a scholarship student. Sophia lifted the receiver. "Lobsidian, how may I help you?" A frantic voice on the other end screamed in Japanese. "Moshi Moshi, keep this line open. This is the Tokyo Metropolitan Police. We are trying to reach Kaio Yamamoto. His tracking shows he is at this location. It is an emergency involving his granddaughter." Sophia's eyes widened. She didn't look at Marcus. She didn't look at Vanessa. She looked directly at the Billionaire CEO, Julian Thorne. "Shut up, Marcus," Sophia said, her voice clear and authoritative. The entire restaurant went silent. Marcus looked like he had been slapped. "Excuse me." Sophia ignored him. She switched to flawless higher Japanese. "Tokyo Metropolitan Police. Yes, Yamamoto-sama is here. Please hold. I will facilitate the connection immediately." She walked past a stunned Julian Thorne, holding the receiver out to the Japanese CEO, who was just standing up from retrieving his phone. "Yamamoto-sama," Sophia said softly, bowing at the perfect 45-degree angle required for respect. "It is the Tokyo police. It concerns your granddaughter Aiko." The silence in the VIP section was deafening, broken only by the heavy breathing of the Japanese industrialist. Mr. Yamamoto looked at the waitress, this girl in a stained apron, as if she were a spirit. He took the phone with trembling hands. "Moshi Moshi. Hi. Hi, Kito. Dezu." Julian Thorne stood frozen. He looked at Vanessa, then at Marcus, then back at Sophia. "What is going on?" he demanded. "What did you say to him?" "She's fired," Marcus sputtered, stepping forward, his face red with rage. "Get out, Vance. How dare you speak to a guest? How dare you?" Julian held up a hand, silencing Marcus instantly, without even looking at him. His eyes were locked on Yamamoto. The old man's knees buckled. He let out a strangled sob. Sophia moved before anyone else could. She grabbed a chair and slid it under him just as he collapsed. She knelt beside him, listening to the one-sided conversation. Yamamoto hung up the phone. He looked devastated. He spoke into the air, his voice hollow. They found her. She has been taken kidnapped, but the kidnappers, they are asking for a code, a verification code for the merger. Julian stepped closer. What is he saying? Is he okay? Sophia stood up. Her posture had changed. She wasn't a waitress anymore. She was a conduit. Mr. Thorne, Sophia said, looking him dead in the eye. Mr. Yamamoto's granddaughter, Ayeko, has been kidnapped in Tokyo. The police have the location, but the kidnappers are demanding a secure authorization code from his side of the merger to release her. They believe the merger money has already been transferred to the holding account. Julian's face went white. Kidnapped? My God! Tell him! Tell him we will do whatever he needs. Wait, Vanessa interrupted, her voice sharp. How do we know she's telling the truth? She's a waitress, Julian. She probably learned Japanese from anime. She's making this up to get attention. Sophia turned her head slowly to look at Vanessa. The look was so withering that Vanessa actually took a step back. With all due respect, Miss Cole, Sophia said, her voice ice cold. The dialect Mr. Yamamoto is using is the Kagoshima dialect, specifically the variation used by the older generation in Kyushu. It's not something you pick up from cartoons. Now, if you want this deal to survive and this man's granddaughter to live, I suggest you let me do my job. She didn't wait for permission. She turned back to Yamamoto. Yamamoto-sama, she said gently. Mr. Thorne pledges his full resources. What do the police need? Yamamoto looked up, tears in his eyes. The police are outside the warehouse, but the kidnappers have rigged the door with a digital lock connected to my company's server. If I force it, it wipes the servers. If I give the wrong code, it triggers an incendiary. I need to bypass the security protocol remotely. But my laptop, I left it at the hotel. Sophia translated quickly for Julian. We need a laptop. Julian barked. Vanessa, give him yours. Vanessa clutched her bag. But it has all the internal Thorne-sensitive data. We can't just let a foreign national access our network. Give him the damn laptop, Vanessa. Julian roared. Vanessa handed it over, trembling. Yamamoto opened it, but his hands were shaking too violently to type. He looked at the keyboard, confused by the English layout. He looked up at Sophia, pleadingly. I cannot. My hands and the letters are wrong. Sophia looked at Julian. He can't type. He needs me to input the override commands while he dictates the syntax. Do it, Julian said. Sir Marcus interrupted again, sweating profusely. This is highly irregular, liability-wise. If she touches corporate equipment, Marcus, Julian said, his voice terrifyingly calm. If you say one more word, I will buy this building solely to evict you. Get out of my sight. Marcus fled. Sophia sat down next to the billionaire industrialist. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Ready, Yamamoto-sama. For the next 10 minutes, the restaurant was a command center. Yamamoto dictated complex coding strings in Japanese. Sophia typed them into the terminal with blinding speed, translating the technical jargon in her head instantly. Route through the proxy. Alpha 7 Delta bypass firewall. Authorize. Sophia hit the enter key. They waited. The phone on the table, still connected to the Tokyo police, was on speaker, but muffled. 30 seconds passed. Then a voice crackled through the phone. Target secured. The door is open. Suspects detained. Eco is safe. I repeat, the child is safe. Yamamoto slumped forward, burying his face in his hands, sobbing uncontrollably. Sophia let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She closed the laptop and stood up. Her legs felt like jelly. She looked at Julian. His granddaughter is safe, Mr. Thorne. Julian looked at the weeping man, then at the young woman in the cheap, stained uniform who had just orchestrated a high-stakes rescue operation. Who are you? Julian asked, genuine wonder in his voice. I'm just the furniture, sir, Sophia said quietly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go clear table 4 before Marcus fires me." She turned to walk away. "Wait," Julian commanded. But before he could say anything else, Vanessa stepped between them. She had regained her composure, and she looked furious. She saw the way Julian was looking at the waitress with respect, with awe, and she hated it. "That was lucky," Vanessa said, forcing a smile. "Thank goodness it worked out. But Julian, we really need to discuss the breach of protocol." She accessed the main frame. "We don't know if she planted malware. She's a desperate waitress, probably looking for a payout." Julian frowned. "Vanessa? She just saved the man's family and created a massive security risk." Vanessa counted. She turned to Sophia. "You can leave now. We'll send you a tip for your assistance, but don't expect to keep your job after accessing executive hardware." Sophia felt the sting of tears. Of course, it always ended like this. The rich stay rich, and the help gets the blame. "I didn't plant anything," Sophia said firmly. "I just wanted to help. Go." Vanessa pointed to the kitchen. Sophia looked at Julian, hoping he would defend her, but Julian was looking at his phone, already dealing with the fallout, distracted by a message from his security team. He didn't see Vanessa wave her away. Sophia swallowed, her pride turned around, and walked back into the kitchen. Marcus was waiting. "Get your things," he spat. "You embarrassed me. You disrupted the VIPs. You're done. Clock out, but out." Sophia grabbed her purse from the locker. She walked out the back door into the rainy alleyway, shivering. She had saved a girl's life, saved $1 billion merger, and her reward was being unemployed with a sick brother. She pulled out her phone to check her bank balance. 49. Don Valo's 52. She leaned against the brick wall and slid down, burying her head in her knees. She began to cry. Suddenly, the heavy metal door of the restaurant burst open. Sophia looked up, wiping her eyes. It wasn't Marcus. It was Kito Yamamoto, and behind him, Julian Thorne. Yamamoto was speaking frantically to Julian, pointing at the alley. Julian spotted her. He didn't look angry. He looked desperate. "Miss Vance!" Julian called out, jogging through the rain in his $5,000 suit. Sophia stood up, wary. "I'm leaving, sir. I've already been fired." "You're not fired," Julian said, stopping in front of her, disregarding the rain soaking his shirt. "And if you are, then I'm hiring you." Yamamoto stepped forward and bowed low, a deep, formal bow of gratitude that shocked Sophia. "You saved my honor and my blood," Yamamoto said in Japanese. "I will not sign this contract with Thorne Enterprises unless you are the one to translate it. Only you. I do not trust anyone else." Julian looked at Sophia. "You heard him. The deal is dead without you." Sophia looked at the man who had let Vanessa dismiss her just moments ago. She straightened her spine. "My rate just went up, Mr. Thorne," she said. Julian smirked, a dangerous glint in his eye. "Name your price." "I don't just want money," Sophia said, thinking of her brother, thinking of the years of being invisible. "I want a position, a real one. And I want an apology from Marcus and Vanessa." Julian extended his hand. "Deal, but we have to go now. The lawyers are waiting upstairs, and Yamamoto refuses to move until you come with us." Sophia looked at his hand. This was the moment, the twist of fate. She took it. The elevator ride up to the private penthouse boardroom of L'Obsidian was suffocatingly silent. Sophia stood in the corner, her waitress uniform damp from the rain, smelling faintly of dish soap and old rain. Next to her, Julian Thorne stood like a statue, carved from marble, radiating heat and power. Kito Yamamoto stood on the other side, looking exhausted, but regarding Sophia with the protective gaze of a grandfather. When the doors pinged open, they stepped into a room that smelled of mahogany and old money. A team of 12 lawyers, 6 from Thor Enterprises and 6 from Yamamoto Industries, looked up. They were expecting the CEO. They were not expecting a wet waitress. Julian, the lead counsel, a sharp-faced man named Silas, stood up. "We've been waiting. The window for the NYSE announcement closes in 2 hours. Where is the interpreter?" "She's right here," Julian said, gesturing to Sophia. Silas scoffed, adjusting his glasses. "The waitress." "Julian, be serious. The contract has nuances regarding intellectual property law that require a certified legal linguist, not someone who reads the lunch specials." Vanessa Cole swept into the room a moment later, having fixed her makeup. She glared at Sophia. "Exactly what I told him, Silas. This is a farce. We should reschedule." Kito Yamamoto slammed his hand on the table. The room jumped. He spoke rapidly in Japanese, pointing at Sophia. Sophia took a breath. She stepped forward, her posture straightening. The damp uniform didn't matter anymore. She was in her element. "Mr. Yamamoto says Sophia," translated her voice, steady and projecting across the long table, "that if anyone other than me speaks for him tonight, he walks. He also mentions that your certified legal linguist from the agency earlier mistranslated joint venture as hostile takeover in the preliminary email, which is why he was already offended before dinner started." Silas turned pale. I wasn't aware of that." "Sit down," Silas Julian commanded, taking the head seat. He pulled out the chair next to him. "Ms. Vance, please sit." Sophia sat at the right hand of the most powerful man in New York. For the next 3 hours, Sophia Vance didn't just translate, she orchestrated. The deal was complex. It involved semiconductor patents, international shipping lanes, and government subsidies in 3 countries. When the Thorne lawyers tried to slip in a clause about subsidiary autonomy, a legal trap to strip Yamamoto of control over his own factories. Sophia caught it. She didn't translate it literally. She paused, turned to Julian, and switched to English. "Mr. Thorne," she said quietly, so only he could hear. "Clause 14, Section B. It implies you want to gut his R&D department within 5 years. Yamamoto values his legacy over profit. If I translate this as written, he will take it as an insult to his ancestors. Do you want the patents, or do you want to start a war?" Julian looked at her surprised. He glanced at the document, then at his lawyers. He realized his legal team had tried to be too aggressive without his direct approval. "Strike Clause 14. Julian ordered loud enough for everyone to hear. "Change it to a shared equity model for R&D. Vanessa gasped. "Julian, that gives them too much leverage. It gets the deal done, Vanessa." Julian snapped. He looked at Sophia with a newfound appreciation. She wasn't just a parrot repeating words. She understood the psychology of the deal. At 11:45 p.m., Kaio Yamamoto uncapped his fountain pen. He looked at Sophia, smiled, and signed the document. The room erupted in applause. The merger was done. $20 billion secured. Yamamoto stood up and bowed to Sophia. "Thank you, Vansan. You have a brilliant mind. Do not waste it serving food." After the Japanese delegation left, the boardroom cleared out until only Julian, Vanessa, and Sophia remained. Julian loosened his tie. He looked at Sophia, really looked at her. "You studied at Columbia." "Yes," Sophia said, feeling the adrenaline crash. "Linguistics and international relations, top of my class. Why did you leave Life Happens, Mr. Thorne? Funerals are expensive. So is survival." Julian reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a checkbook. He wrote something quickly and slid it across the mahogany table. Sophia looked at it. It was a personal check for $50,000. "This is for tonight," Julian said. "Consider it a consulting fee." Sophia's hands shook. This was enough for Toby's surgery. It was enough to pay off the debts. She felt tears prick her eyes. I thank you. And as for the job, Julian continued, I need an executive liaison for the Asia-Pacific division. Someone who understands culture, not just language. Starting salary is $150,000 a year, plus bonuses. I'll take it, Sophia said instantly. Good. Report to my office at 8:88 a.m. Bring your passport. Wait, Sophia said, her voice hardening. We had a deal, Mr. Thorne. Julian raised an eyebrow. I just gave you 50 grand and a job. What else? You promised me an apology, Sophia said, turning her gaze to Vanessa. Vanessa, who had been sulking by the window, turned around with a scoff. You're joking. I am the Vice President of Operations. I am not apologizing to the help. I'm not the help anymore, Vanessa Sophia said calmly. I'm the executive liaison. And technically, since the Asia-Pacific deal is now the company's primary revenue stream, I'm the most important asset in this building right now. Julian hid a smile behind his hand. He liked this fire. She's right, Vanessa, Julian said, his voice dropping to that dangerous low register. You tried to kick her out. You risked the deal, apologize, or explained to the board why we lost Yamamoto. Vanessa's face turned a blotchy red. She walked over to the table, her knuckles white as she gripped the leather chair. I apologize, she ground it out through gritted teeth. I judged you prematurely. Thank you, Vanessa, Sophia said sweetly. I look forward to working with you. Vanessa spun on her heel and stormed out of the room, the heavy door slamming behind her. Sophia looked back at Julian. Be careful, Julian warned, his expression serious. Vanessa is the daughter of one of my biggest shareholders. She's protected, and she doesn't forgive humiliation. I've survived eviction notices and hunger, Mr. Thorne, Sophia said, clutching the check that would save her brother's life. I think I can handle a girl in Prada. Julian stood up and walked to the door, holding it open for her. We'll see, Sophia. Welcome to the Shark Tank. The next morning, Sophia Vance did not look like a waitress. She had spent a small fraction of the check at a 24-hour boutique. She wore a tailored navy blazer, crisp white trousers and heels that clicked with authority against the granite floors of Thorne Tower. Her hair was down, cascading in soft waves, no longer pulled back in a severe bun. When she walked into the lobby, the security guard who usually ignored her when she delivered takeout stopped and stared. ID, he asked. Sophia Vance, executive liaison, she said, handing over her new temporary badge. The scanner beeped green. Access granted. Floor 50 executive suite. The elevator ride was smooth, but her stomach was doing some assaults. She texted Toby, Surgery is booked. I love you. Stay strong. When the doors opened on the 50th floor, the atmosphere was chaotic. Phones were ringing. Analysts were running with tablets, and the energy was frantic. You must be the miracle worker. Sophia turned to see a young man with messy red hair and a tablet tucked under his arm. I'm Leo. He grinned, extending a hand. Head of it. I heard about what you did with the Japanese server code. Alpha 7 Delta, that's old-school backdoor coding. Where did you learn that my father was a cryptographer for the Navy before he retired? Sophia lied smoothly. She couldn't tell him she had just memorized what Yamamoto told her to type. I picked up a few things. Nice. Well, Julian is waiting. Boardroom B. Sophia walked down the glass corridor. She could feel eyes on her. The rumor mill had been working overtime. The waitress who saved the merger. The girl who made Vanessa Cole apologize. She entered Boardroom B. Julian was there along with Vanessa and 3 other executives. On time, Julian said, not looking up from his papers. Good. Good morning, Sophia said, taking a seat. Vanessa didn't look at her. She was typing furiously on her laptop. Straight to business, Julian said. Yamamoto is happy. The deal is signed. But now we have the hard part. Implementation. We need to integrate their logistics software with ours by Friday. Sophia, you're the bridge. You need to translate the technical schematics from their Osaka team for our engineers. Consider it done, Sophia said. Here are the files, Vanessa said, sliding a thick black folder across the table. Her voice was sickly sweet. These are the priority schematics. Julian wants them done by 2 Source A for the investor call. Sophia took the folder. 2 hours PM. That's 4 hours. This is 200 pages. Is that a problem? Vanessa smirked. I thought you were a prodigy. Julian looked up. It's a tight deadline, Sophia. But we need it. Sophia opened the folder. She scanned the first page. It was dense, technical Japanese engineering physics. I can do it, Sophia said, closing the folder. She wouldn't give Vanessa the satisfaction of seeing her sweat. Excellent, Julian said. Meeting adjourned. As everyone filed out, Vanessa lingered. She leaned in close to Sophia's ear. Don't get too comfortable. Honey, Vanessa whispered. You might have tricked Julian. But I know trash when I smell it. You'll be back pouring water by the end of the week. Sophia smiled, ice in her eyes. And you'll still be relying on Daddy's shares to keep your job. Excuse me, I have work to do. Sophia found her new office, a small but sleek glass cube overlooking Central Park. She sat down, cracked her knuckles, and opened the folder. She began to translate. But 10 pages in, she frowned. Something was wrong. The schematics Vanessa gave her, they weren't for the current semiconductor model. The dates on the headers were from 1998. These were archived blueprints for obsolete technology. If Sophia translated these, and the engineering team built the integration based on them, the entire system would crash. It would cost the company millions in delays, and Sophia would be blamed for translating the wrong files. Vanessa had set her up. Sophia checked the file name Project Yamamoto Main V1. It looked official, but it was a trap. Sophia's heart raced. It was 11:00 a.m. The meeting was at 2 hacks. If she went to Julian now and complained, Vanessa would say it was an honest mistake, or that Sophia grabbed the wrong folder. It would make Sophia look incompetent and whiny. She needed to outsmart her. Sophia picked up her office phone. She didn't call Julian. She called the number she had saved in her memory from the night before. Yamamoto Industries, Osaka branch. She spoke in rapid Japanese to the receptionist, then was transferred to the chief engineer. This is Sophia Vance, calling on behalf of Julian Thorne. I am looking at the schematic sent over. I believe there has been a transmission error. We received the 1998 archives. Could you secure fax the 2025 specs directly to my terminal immediately? We have a board meeting in 3 hours. The engineer was horrified. 1998. That is garbage data. I will send the new encrypted packet now. 5 minutes later, the printer in Sophia's office to life. The correct documents, Sophia typed furiously. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She skipped lunch. She ignored her phone. At 1:55 p.m., she walked into the conference room. The investors were there. Julian was at the head of the table. Vanessa sat next to him, a smug smile plastered on her face. Sophia, Julian said. Do you have the translations? I do, Sophia said, placing a bound document on the table. Vanessa reached for it. Let me check it first. We can't have any errors. Vanessa opened the document. Her smile vanished. She was expecting to see descriptions of obsolete vacuum tubes and cathode rays. Instead, she saw precise, cutting-edge quantum chip architecture. She looked up at Sophia, her eyes wide with shock. Is everything satisfactory, Vanessa? Sophia asked innocently. It's correct, Vanessa stammered. Good, Julian said. Let's begin. The meeting was a triumph. The investors were impressed by the speed of the integration plan. After the meeting, Julian asked Sophia to stay behind. "You did good today," Julian said. He looked tired. "But there's something else. Something regarding the kidnapping last night." Sophia's stomach tightened. "The police said she was safe. She is," Julian said. He walked over to the window looking out at the city. "But my security team did a forensic audit of the data breach the code the kidnappers asked for. It wasn't just a random key. It was a specific override for our New York server." He turned to face her. The kidnappers were in Tokyo, but the code they needed, it could only have been generated by someone inside this building. Someone who knew the merger was happening before it was public. Sophia realized the implication immediately. "You think it was an inside job? I think someone at Thor Enterprises worked with the kidnappers to sabotage the deal," Julian said darkly. "They wanted the merger to fail, or they wanted to bankrupt Yamamoto." "Who knew about the deal?" Sophia asked. "The board, the legal team." Julian paused. "And Vanessa." Sophia's blood ran cold. Vanessa was petty. Yes, she was mean. But was she a monster? Was she capable of orchestrating the kidnapping of a child just to stop a business deal? "Why are you telling me this?" Sophia asked. "Because," Julian stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper, "you're the only person I know for a fact wasn't involved. You were just a waitress yesterday. You have no motive." He looked into her eyes, and for a moment the professional barrier thinned. "I need you to be my eyes and ears, Sophia. Everyone in this office is a suspect, especially the people closest to me." Just then, Sophia's phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. She glanced at it. Text: "You got lucky with the files today. But if you keep digging, your brother's surgery won't be the only thing to worry about." Sophia dropped the phone. "What is it?" Julian asked, reaching for her. "Nothing." Sophia lied, quickly snatching the phone back. If she told him, he might fire her to protect her. She needed this money. She needed to save Toby. I just have to go check on something." Sophia turned and walked out of the office, her heart hammering against her ribs. The game had changed. It wasn't just office politics anymore. She was being hunted. The Midnight Sun Gala was the most important social event of the New York season. It was where alliances were forged and enemies were buried under smiles and champagne. "You're attending," Julian said, tossing a gold-embossed invitation onto Sophia's desk. The next morning, Sophia looked up from her translation of the shipping manifests. "Sir, I'm an employee. I don't think you are the executive liaison for our biggest partner. Yamamoto will be there. He won't speak to anyone but you. You're going." Julian paused, his eyes scanning her simple blouse. "And you'll need to dress the part. I've had Vanessa arrange for a stylist to send something over." Sophia's stomach dropped. Trusting Vanessa to dress her was like trusting a viper to babysit a mouse. Sure enough, an hour later, a garment bag arrived. Sophia unzipped it in the privacy of the ladies' room. She gasped, not in delight, but in horror. The dress was a shocking, neon yellow monstrosity, with a neckline that plunged to her enouvel and a hemline that barely covered her thighs. It looked like a costume for a cheap bachelorette party, not a gown for a billion-dollar gala. A note was pinned to it. "Try not to embarrass us. V." Sophia checked the time. The gala was in 3 hours. She couldn't wear this. If she did, she'd be the laughingstock of the city, and Julian would be humiliated. She grabbed her purse and ran out of the building. She didn't go to Fifth Avenue. She couldn't afford it yet. She went to a vintage consignment shop in Chelsea she used to frequent during her college days. She found it a vintage 1950s emerald green silk gown. It was modest, elegant, and cut to perfection. It cost her nearly everything she had left in her checking account, but she bought it. At 8, Water P, in the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, was a sea of diamonds and tuxedos. Julian stood at the top of the staircase, Vanessa clutching his arm. Vanessa was wearing a custom silver gown that looked like liquid mercury. She scanned the room, a cruel smirk playing on her lips, waiting for Sophia to walk in, wearing the yellow disaster. "Where is she?" Julian checked his watch, annoyed. "Yamamoto is asking." "Probably got cold feet," Vanessa purred. "Or maybe she realized she doesn't belong here, darling. She's probably back at the diner where Vanessa stopped." Her mouth fell open. The room went quiet. Sophia stood at the top of the stairs. The emerald silk flowed around her like water. Her hair was swept up in a classic chignon, revealing her neck. She wore no jewelry. She didn't need it. She looked like royalty. Julian looked up, his breath hitched in his throat. He shook off Vanessa's arm without even realizing it, and walked toward the stairs. "You made it," Julian said, offering his hand as she descended. "And you didn't wear the dress Vanessa sent." "It didn't fit," Sophia said, diplomatically, taking his hand. "I hope this is acceptable." "It's perfect," Julian murmured. From across the room, Vanessa watched them, her eyes narrowing into slits of pure hatred. She pulled out her phone and typed a message. "Plan B. Destroy her tonight." The evening was a blur of introductions. Sophia charmed the Japanese delegation, translated jokes, and navigated the shark tank of high society with grace. But she remained alert. The text threat from yesterday was still burning in her mind. Your brother won't be the only thing to worry about. She kept an eye on Vanessa. Around 10 counter p.m., Sophia excused herself to find a quiet corner to drink some water. She slipped behind a large pillar near the terrace doors. That was when she heard voices. "She's becoming a problem, Silas." Julian is looking at her like she's the second coming. It was Vanessa. "Calm down," a male voice replied. It was Silas, the head legal counsel. "Let her have her moment. The transfer is scheduled for midnight. Once the funds from the Yamamoto merger hit the offshore clearing account, we trigger the secondary routing number. And the blame Vanessa asked falls on the person who authorized the server bridge." Silas chuckled darkly. "Sophia Vance. We used her login to set up the dummy account this morning while she was in the meeting. When the money disappears, all 20 billion of it, it will look like the Waitress pulled the greatest heist in history. She'll go to prison for life. And you, my dear, will be there to comfort a bankrupt Julian." Sophia clapped a hand over her mouth to stifle a gasp. They weren't just trying to get her fired. They were stealing the merger money and framing her for embezzlement. She needed to tell Julian now. She turned to run back to the ballroom, but she collided with a hard chest. "Going somewhere, Miss Vance?" It was a security guard, but not one of the regular hotel staff. He was huge with a scar running down his cheek. He gripped her arm hard enough to bruise. "Let me go," Sophia hissed. "Mr. Silas wants a word." The man grunted, dragging her toward the terrace doors. "Julian!" Sophia screamed, but the jazz band had just started a loud number, drowning her out. The man dragged her out onto the balcony. The cold wind hit her face. "Don't make a scene." The guard growled, pushing her toward the railing. It was a 20-story drop. "You're going to leave quietly. You're going to go to the airport, and you're going to disappear. If you do, your brother lives. If you go back inside, well, accidents happen." Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs. She looked at the drop, then at the guard. She thought of Toby. She thought of the betrayal. "I'm not going anywhere," she said, her voice trembling but defiant. The guard reached for a taser on his belt. "Wrong answer." Suddenly the balcony door smashed open. "Get your hands off her." It wasn't Julian. It was Kaio Yamamoto, and behind him, two of his personal security detail men who looked far more dangerous than the hired thug. The guard froze. "Remove this trash," Yamamoto barked in Japanese. His men moved in a blur. Within seconds, the thug was on his knees, zip-tied. Julian ran out onto the balcony a second later, looking frantic. "Sophia," I heard. "Are you hurt?" He saw the scene. The restrained guard, Yamamoto's stone-faced men, and Sophia shivering in her green dress. Julian rushed to her, wrapping his tuxedo jacket around her shoulders. He looked at the guard. "Who is this?" "As Silas," Sophia said, her voice shaking. "And Vanessa." The ride back to Thorn Tower was silent and terrifyingly fast. Mamoto insisted on coming with them, his security detail following in a black SUV. "Explain," Julian demanded, as they entered his private office. He had ordered security to lock down the building. No one was allowed in or out. Sophia told him everything. The conversation she overheard, the plan to steal the 20 billion the frame up using her login. Silas Julian whispered, pacing the room. "He's been with the company for 15 years. He knows every back door in our financial system. And Vanessa?" Julian asked, his voice breaking slightly. "She's in on it," Sophia said gently. "She hates me, Julian, but she hates losing power more. She thinks if you lose the money, you'll be dependent on her family's wealth again." Julian walked to his desk and slammed his fist down. "Check the accounts now." Leo, the red-headed IT chief, was summoned. He looked sleepy, but woke up fast when he saw the faces in the room. He started typing on Julian's terminal. "Okay, checking the Yamamoto clearing account," Leo mumbled. "Funds await. Pending transfer." "Stop it," Julian ordered. "I can't," Leo said, panic rising in his voice. "It's a timed execute command. It's locked behind a biometric encryption. It's set to trigger at midnight." They looked at the clock on the wall. 11:48 p.m. 12 minutes, Julian said. 12 minutes until I lose my company. "Who has the biometric key?" Sophia asked. "Me," Julian said. "And the general counsel, Silas." "Silas isn't here," Leo said. "But the command was initiated from inside the building. The source IP is the server room on the 15th floor. He's downstairs," Julian realized. "He's manually overriding the safety protocols to force the transfer." "I'll go," Julian said, pulling a gun from his desk drawer. No Yamamoto stepped forward. "My men will go." "We all go," Sophia said. "I know the code sequence he's using. I saw the strings when I was translating the server logs. If he changes the routing, I might be the only one who can spot the syntax error and reverse it." Julian looked at her. "It's dangerous. My brother is on the line. Julian, I'm done being afraid." They ran to the elevators. When the doors opened on the 15th floor, the hallway was dark. The emergency lights were pulsing red. "He cut the power to the floor," Leo whispered. They moved toward the server room. The heavy steel door was locked. "Step back," Yamamoto's head of security said. He raised a heavy boot and kicked the latch. "It held!" He kicked again. The metal groaned from inside the room. A voice crackled over the intercom system. "I wouldn't do that, Julian." It was Silas. "If you breach the door, I'll trigger the EMP fail-safe. It won't just steal the money. It will fry every server in the building. All your data, all your patents, all your leverage gone. Poof." Julian pressed the intercom button. "Silas, it's over. We know about the frame-up. There's nowhere to go." On the contrary, Silas laughed, a tiny, distorted sound. "I have a helicopter landing on the roof in 5 minutes. Vanessa arranged it. She's quite efficient when she wants to be. Now here is the deal. You let me walk out of here with the transfer, and I won't burn the building down. You have insurance, Julian. You'll survive." "He's bluffing," Sophia whispered. "He can't trigger an EMP without the root password, and he doesn't have it." "How do you know?" Julian asked. Because the root password is reset daily based on the Japanese kanji character of the day from the Yamamoto calendar, Sophia said quickly. It's an old protocol Mr. Yamamoto insisted on years ago for the joint venture. Silas doesn't speak Japanese. Sophia looked at the keypad on the door. If I can override the lock from here, we can get in before he executes the transfer. Do it, Julian said. Sophia's fingers flew across the keypad. She needed to bypass Silas's lockout. 11:55 p.m. Come on, she muttered. Inside the room they could hear Silas typing frantically. He was trying to speed up the transfer. 11:56 p.m. "Oat it," Sophia shouted. The light turned green. Julian kicked the door open. Silas was standing by the main terminal, sweat pouring down his face. He held a lighter over the fire suppression system's heat sensor. "Back off," Silas screamed. "I'll set it off. The halon gas will kill us all. Put it down, Silas." Julian aimed his weapon. "Where is Vanessa?" Silas yelled, looking unhinged. She was supposed to signal the chopper. "Vanessa isn't coming." A voice echoed from the doorway. Vanessa Cole stood there. But she wasn't alone. She was handcuffed, flanked by 2 NYPD officers. "I called the police." Vanessa sobbed, her makeup running down her face. "I couldn't do it. I wanted to humiliate her, Silas. I didn't want to go to federal prison." Silas's face twisted in rage. "You weak little coward." He lunged for the keyboard to hit the final enter key that would send the money. Julian fired not at Silas, but at the server tower next to him. Sparks showered down. The screen flickered. Silas dove for the keyboard. Sophia threw herself forward. She didn't tackle Silas. She tackled the keyboard, slamming her hand down on the ESC key, just as Silas's finger came down the screen. Froze. A red box popped up. Transaction aborted. Silas screamed in frustration. He pulled a knife from his belt and slashed at Sophia. "Sophia!" Julian shouted. He dropped the gun and tackled Silas. The 2 men hit the floor hard. Silas was desperate. Fighting with the strength of a cornered rat, he slashed Julian's arm, drawing blood. But then a shadow fell over them. Yamamoto's security guard stepped in, grabbed Silas by the back of his suit jacket, and threw him against the server rack with a bone-crunching thud. Silas slumped to the floor unconscious. Silence filled the room, broken only by the hum of the cooling fans. Julian sat up, clutching his bleeding arm. He looked at Sophia. She was breathing hard, sitting on the floor, her beautiful green dress smeared with server grease and dust. "You stopped it," Julian breathed. "You saved it." Sophia looked at the screen. The money was safe. She looked at Vanessa, who was weeping in the hallway, as the police read her rights. "It's over," Sophia whispered. Then her phone rang. The room went deadly silent. It was the same unknown number. Sophia answered it, putting it on speaker. Her hand shook. "Hello." A voice spoke, deep, distorted, and calm. "Impressive work, Miss Vance. You stopped Silas. You stopped Vanessa." Julian froze. "Who is this?" "Silas was a greedy fool," the voice said, "and Vanessa was a useful pawn. But did you really think they were the ones running the show? They were just the distraction." Sophia's blood ran cold. "Where is my brother? Toby is sleeping soundly," the voice said. "I'm not a monster, but now you have my attention. Sophia, you've cost me 20 billion, and I always collect my debts." The line went dead. Julian looked at the unconscious Silas, then at the weeping Vanessa. "There's someone else," Julian said, his eyes dark with a terrifying realization. "Someone above them." Sophia stood up. She walked over to Julian and tore a strip of fabric from her expensive dress to bind his wound. "Then we find them," Sophia said, her voice hard as steel, "and we make them pay." Julian looked at her. this warrior in a torn ball gown. And for the first time, he didn't just see an employee, he saw a partner. He reached out and touched her cheek with his good hand. "We make them pay," he agreed. Together. 3 months later, the snow was falling softly on Manhattan. Sophia Vance stood outside L'Obsidian. She wasn't wearing an apron. She was wearing a cashmere coat and diamond earrings that caught the streetlight. Julian stood beside her, his arm wrapped possessively around her waist. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I think so." Sophia smiled. They pushed through the doors. The restaurant was buzzing, but the moment they entered, the chatter died down. Everyone knew who they were. They were the power couple of New York, the billionaire CEO and the genius executive VP who had exposed the biggest corporate fraud of the decade. Vanessa Cole and Silas were currently awaiting trial in a federal detention center. The voice on the phone turned out to be Julian's estranged stepbrother, who had funded Silas's operation. He had been arrested in Monaco 2 weeks ago, thanks to a tip from Kito Yamamoto. But there was one loose end: Marcus Sterling. After being fired by Julian that fateful night, Marcus had managed to claw his way back into the restaurant under temporary management, claiming he was the only one who knew the operations. He was currently standing at the Matrei station, looking smug as he yelled at a young busboy. "You dropped a napkin. You are worthless." Marcus sneered at the trembling boy. "I should fire you right now." "Excuse me." Sophia's voice rang out. Marcus spun around. His face went pale when he saw Sophia. Ms. Vance," Marcus stammered, forcing a fake smile. "What a pleasant surprise. Do you have a reservation? I'm afraid we are fully booked. But for old time's sake, I can squeeze you in near the kitchen." Sophia didn't blink. She reached into her purse and pulled out a thick document. She slammed it onto the podium. "I don't need a reservation," Marcus Sophia said coolly. "I own the building." Marcus's jaw dropped. "What Julian bought the property," Sophia said, stepping closer. "And he gifted the deed to me as a signing bonus. I am the owner of L'Obsidian. I am your boss." The entire restaurant was watching. The busboy looked at Sophia with wide, hopeful eyes. Now Sophia said, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried the weight of a guillotine. "You told me once that I was furniture, that I was invisible." "Sophia, please, I was under stress." Marcus began to sweat. "I have a mortgage, and that busboy has rent." Sophia pointed to the kid. "You're fired, Marcus. Get out. And if I ever hear you've mistreated service staff in this city again, I will make sure you don't even get a job scrubbing toilets at the bus station." Marcus looked at Julian for help. Julian just smirked. "She's the boss, Marcus. You heard her." Marcus hung his head. He took off his name tag, placed it on the podium, and walked out into the cold, snowy night, jobless and humiliated. Sophia turned to the young busboy. "What's your name, Leo?" "Mum." "Leo, you're the new floor manager. Treat your team with respect." Leo beamed. "Yes, Mum. Thank you." Sophia turned back to Julian. He was looking at her with absolute adoration. "You were terrifying, Julian," whispered, pulling her close. "I love it. I learned from the best," Sophia replied. Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. The room went silent again. Kao Yamamoto, who was dining at table 1, raised his glass in a toast. "Sophia Vance," Julian said, getting down on one knee in the middle of the restaurant where she used to mop floors. "You saved my company. You saved my honor. Now let me save you a spot by my side forever. Will you marry me?" Sophia looked at the ring, a massive yellow diamond that matched the color of the ugly dress Vanessa had tried to force on her reclaimed and made beautiful. Tears filled her eyes. She thought of Toby, healthy and recovering at home. She thought of her parents. She thought of the girl who poured water and dreamed of more. Yes, Sophia whispered 1,000 times. Yes. As the restaurant erupted in applause, Sophia realized that the opening hook was wrong. She wasn't Cinderella. She didn't need a fairy godmother. She just needed a chance to answer the call. And that is how the invisible waitress became the Queen of New York. Sophia proved that true power isn't about the suit you wear or the table you sit at. It's about the intelligence, kindness, and courage you carry inside. She faced down billionaires, corporate spies, and cruel managers, and she won it all. What would you have done if you were in Sophia's shoes? Would you have answered that phone call, or would you have stayed just furniture? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of justice and romance, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. We have a crazy tale coming up next week about a homeless man who wins the lottery but loses his memory. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching.